What is good, my people? We are live back on the forecast. And I apologize. It's been a little minute, you know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all subscribe to the backup channel, the Forecast Radio 24. I got a new video coming up soon. You know, YouTube, how they do. They don't send notifications in the first place. But the new video will be up shortly on the backup channel, the Forecast Radio 24, and that's in the description. And I just came on. I want to talk to the people. I want y'all to call in. It's kind of an open show today, so I want y'all to call in. The number is right there on the screen. Is 804-601-4015. So I definitely want to hear from y'all and make sure y'all subscribe. And before I even start, um, I want to shout out to the sister Wanda Chavis. She holds it down all the time, and always sending donations and all of that, and it helps so much. So I want to shout out the sister. Is so much love. The reason I've been having it's been taking me a little longer to make these videos because everybody going through a lot right now, and you got to work to take care of your family. The family comes first, even though I'm never going to stop doing this and we always going to be here. It just may take a little longer right now, but we still going to do what we have to do, because if we don't, then the same thing is going to keep happening. Now, I'm a little disappointed because now, last week, 2 weeks ago, we were ready to lose our families. We were ready to argue, fight, whatever, each other over this election. But now that this election is over, we moved on to different stuff, right? We're right back on the entertainment train, right? When just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, everybody was so politically aware. Now, like I said, after the election, my question is, are you still going to be mad? Because now that you have your candidate in office, now what are you going to ask for? Because you said we're going to have to wait till after the election. You said we're going to have to wait for this. We're going to have to wait for that. But now, are you still going to make any demands, or is this good enough for you? Is the status quo good enough? Now, as a people, we, feel like, okay, well, we are above this. We are better than that, right? We can't feel emotions. We can't feel anger. But anger is not a negative emotion. You wouldn't have it if you wasn't supposed to have it, right? We have to really look at our condition, because when we really look at our condition, right, it wouldn't be just because Donald Trump is in office that we get mad. We should have been mad 100 years ago, and we were. It's just somewhere along the lines we decided to get complacent. Now, one thing I never understood, and it's not all of us, and it's probably not even the majority, but from day one, ever since our enemies pulled up on us, we've welcomed them with open arms, right? Our societies accepted them, right? Certain people like Shaka Zulu, he was like, those Europeans gonna come in here and take over one day. I'm telling y'all, but we didn't listen. We got put into literally the worst form of slavery. There's never been laws on the books like they've passed in America. But all we've ever said is we just want to be accepted. We just want a fair chance in your system. What's going on, black man? Yeah, make sure y'all call in tonight too. I ain't gonna be on here too long because I'm trying to live premiere the video. You know how YouTube do, and they won't send notifications, and I'm not even sure how many people watch these videos. Um, yeah, I don't really know, but why is it that instead of saying we want completely out of this system, we want to build our own system, however it is, we said we just want to be equal in your system. Now, I'm not really sure where a lot of that low self-esteem comes from, but most of it comes from having that mindset beaten into us. When you actually you can look at your own family's history probably, but when you look at black history for real, there's no way that you can't be so angry that you want to get up and do something about it. There's no way that somebody can tell you, well, Donald Trump is the cause of racism. Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States of America. And America has been racist since before the first president. Still, we buy into it. We want to be friends with everybody else. But when you are in a relationship when it's unrequited, where they're not doing the same thing for you, that's a sign of low self-esteem. Right? Every group that came to America or came into contact with the system of white supremacy that wasn't considered white, they do the same thing. Starting with the Irish, because they love to say, well, the Irish were enslaved in America too. Well, no, they weren't enslaved in America. They were overseers. They got their freedom. They were supposed to get freedom dues, whether they were given to them or not. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, other Europeans treated them fairly. That's not our problem. Now, the problem comes in the Irish are the ones who created this blackface minstrel shows. They are the main actors, them and Jewish people, who also are still kind of considered non-white to this day. So what did they do? They used racism to try to get their white card. Now, what makes you think other groups won't do the exact same thing? And people got mad when that Hispanic woman said, Hispanic women are the unsung heroes of this election, even though, they lost in like major key states because of the Hispanic women, because of white women. So why are we still sitting here talking about minorities, people of color, when white women being the largest voter bloc, the largest demographic in America, calling themselves minorities? That's because even though we know it deep down in our hearts, we don't want to accept the fact that we are prisoners of war, because that would mean that somebody declared war on us. But guess what? If they can shoot you down in the street and you can't do nothing about it, you're not the one that's declaring war on anybody. But to talk about self-defense when really you're just saying, yo, stop killing me. Now they're going to take that as a terrorist threat because that's the definition of America. That's the definition of white supremacy. White supremacy is defined by black inferiority. So if you start talking about I'm not inferior, well, yeah, of course you're going to be a threat to the system. Let alone talking about protecting yourself, protecting your family. And I'm not sure if y'all heard about the story, but in one of the videos that I did that's about to come up, this brother, let me see. This brother, Justin Reed in Florida. Now, the police, undercover, the biggest gang in America, quote unquote, investigating other gangs, which is kind of ironic. They were outside of his house, just parked, sitting there for 5-10 minutes. And, his wife looking outside like, yo, who is this? So this brother went outside to go protect his family. Now, he didn't go out there guns blazing, right? He did have a gun, and he said, yo, who is this? Why are you sitting in front of my house? Now, it happened to be some undercover cops. And the first thing they did was get out and open fire and shoot this brother. Now, we got to understand that America sees our lives as politics because we're nothing but politics to them. So when somebody murders us or does something to us unjustly, the most that they can say is, well, both sides were wrong. Things could have been different. It's a tragedy. They're saying, this brother should have called the police when it was the police who killed him. But this is the reason why we have to build our own organizations, why we have to build our own stuff. But we're so busy trying to fight for our enemies and join our enemies and say, well, look at me as an equal, that we don't take the time to build our own stuff. Because if we put half of that energy into fighting for ourselves, we would be so far along. And don't believe that we've always been divided. We haven't unified, because when there was no illusion of inclusion, they knew they had to unify. And that was not so long ago. The issue was they were unable to protect what they build. But, that's history that we learn from. But, this brother was murdered outside of his own house, right? Just for making sure. And he was happened to be right, because it was somebody sitting outside with guns and they ended up killing him. And the last thing he said was told his wife to go back inside the house. Right? But all they're going to say, well, it was a tragedy. He should have did this. He should have did that. There's no way that a black man should have took matters in his own hands to protect his family. He should have called somebody sanctioned by the state, sanctioned by America. And then if they killed him, that's okay. But, we got our candidate in, so I guess we can't complain about that anymore. Because now they say, if you don't vote, well, you can't complain. Well, if you do vote, are you going to complain? Because that's the issue, right? But still, we're so down to, defend our enemies trying to fit in, but we could never fit in with the system. But the question is, why would we want to when we can create something so much better, whatever we want to create that fits us however we want to create it? But we let their propaganda get in our heads, and we got that white man ISIS colder mentality. When in reality, we probably be the ones that package it, that'll probably, you know, make some kind of way to make that ice have some kind of flavor, some kind of, style to it that your enemy will copy and, trademark and make billions of dollars off of it. But we're so down to be in somebody else's system. Right, that's the thing. He was a black man with a gun, so you're automatically a target. And I'll tell you what, a a long time ago, right? Me and a couple of my friends, we was outside and the dude robbed us. And so he called the police to get a report, to make sure we can get our stuff back. The police, the first thing, we was young, we didn't know any better. And the first thing the police said was, "Well, what are y'all doing outside? Where's the guns and the drugs?" Like, we were literally victims just sitting outside minding our own business, not breaking any laws, not doing anything wrong. But they see you as they see you. What's going on, brother Bakari? And anybody can call in, by the way. The number is right there on the screen, 804-601-4015. I'm just coming on because the live show is coming up a little bit later. I'm about to upload it, so make sure y'all subscribe to the Forecast Radio 24, because the new video will be up. And again, I got a shout out to my sister Wanda Chavis. She's been holding it down for a long time. She constantly, every single month, on time. So, I got a shout out to the sister. She helped me keep motivated. Everybody helped me stay motivated, but you know, I got to shout out that sister. But if we did have the half the energy for ourselves, right? If we got that propaganda out our heads, and that's a part of why it's important to start with the kids, because you can't let that propaganda get into their heads. But in the video that is coming out, the other story, you know, this brother, I'm pretty sure y'all heard of it, Damian Daniels, who had served in the military and had mental issues because of it. Right? Never had a criminal record. Right? He was just having mental issues. And of course, we like to say, all kind of connections that we think we have, but we have no friends. Right? And this dude, this brother ended up getting shot by a Hispanic cop and the Hispanic DA, the Hispanic police chief. Everybody escaping, right? Because this brother had a legal weapon in his house. They knew he was diagnosed already, but they don't have compassion because they see you and we see each other through the same lens. But they see you as not like them. They see you as some kind of wild, violent species. And even though they may say, no, we don't look at you like that, their actions don't reflect that. You have to look at somebody's actions. And this brother joined the military to help them. So why are we helping a military that's built to keep us in our place? We fought, literally, we have to be the only group of people in history to fight our enemy to help join their army to keep us conquered. And, it makes no sense. And even if you're going to do it, at least do it like, the black soldiers did it during the Camp Logan mutiny, the Houston riot of 1917, right? Where the police kept messing with the people in the black community. So the black soldiers got on code, went to go protect the people in the black community, right? And they ended up killing like 16 white people, including like 11 cops. Now, like 40 or 50 people got arrested, but they stayed on code and nobody said a word, right? Some people who wasn't involved got arrested and put war on trial, and some people who was involved did not get arrested, but nobody said a word. Because they stay on code. But as a group of people, we still out here fighting them to join their army. But if we were to talk about creating our own army, we would look at ourselves like, oh Lord, don't start talking like that now. And you can tell that, it's different for us because America built itself off guns, prides itself off guns. What's the second law they've ever passed in America was about guns. But you having guns is a totally different thing. Because you ain't seen as a citizen. Because if you were a citizen, why would they have to vote every 25 years, whether to extend the Voters' Right Act? Right? That should just come as a given. But they realized when the black soldiers that did, like kind of like the spook who sat by the door, right? They went to the army, they got the training, they got the guns, and then they came home and then they held down the black community, right? And this was going all the way up to the 60s, right? Where when anytime a mob would try to come into town, right, the soldiers would post up on the roof. And, they don't tell you about a lot of this history because they drove them back a lot of times, right? They just shoot out all the lights and then light up anybody who come in there looking for trouble. But the thing about us is we always have to be apologetic about what we do. But why are you apologizing for making sure that your son or your daughter isn't harmed, or your wife or your husband isn't harmed, or you aren't harmed? Why would you apologize for that? Because nobody else is going to apologize for that. And if you were so American, why did they take the self-defense part out of it? Because their founding fathers said, give me liberty or give me death. But when you say, give me liberty, they give you the electric chair and then literally erase your name from history. especially if you had any kind of following. But, at some point, we're going to have to let that energy, and it's there for a reason. Anytime I do all of these videos, it does make me mad, right? But that energy is there for a reason. It's there to be used in the right way, because when we start doing that, you'll destroy the system easily. And they know that. That's why you have always been the number one target, no matter how decimated we may have been, no matter how much we may have forgotten about our histories, right? Too many of us couldn't even tell you our great 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 grandfather's name or what they did. And that's for a very good reason, because when we learn who we are and what we're capable of, the system will be destroyed so easily. And the ironic part is, from the beginning of America, there would not have been, well, we'll just, not even going to the slavery part, right? Just with the wars. Because, George Washington, of course, didn't want to let black people in the war because they didn't want to give black people guns, because they knew what was going to happen. So the British gave black people guns and said, if you fight with us, we'll give you freedom. Right now, it's very hard to trust any Europeans, because we could have just said, hey, we'll fight together and just destroy these people. But George Washington was getting crushed, and he had to go beg the very people who he hated, who he wanted to enslave, to help him. He had to break down and say, well, if we'll offer freedom in this certain state if you come and help. And then turn around and pass the Fugitive Slave Act. Right? But every single war, every single thing America does, when it comes down to crunch time, they turn around to you and say, hey, my Negro friend, we need your help. And every single time we're like, oh, I sure will. Hopefully I get my freedom. Well, it comes from you doing your own thing. But I'm wanna keep going on. Like, if anybody got something to say or whatever, I want y'all to call in. The number is 804-601-4015. But if you were American, as you like to say, America spends the most money in the world on self-defense. Americans will kill you for trying to take away their gun rights. Americans believe in militias. And I'm not saying hate or love your enemy. I'm saying look at your enemy and see what they do and see the successful things that they did. But it took, and still, even to this day, we see what happened with, black gun owners and black gun clubs or whatever. But still, to this day, they make sure the guns is out of our hands. But the difference is a lot of our ancestors knew other ways to deal with it. They understood nature. They knew which plants they could use to hurt them or paralyze them or poison them without even knowing it. So what did they do? They made learning about plants illegal. When has that ever been a law in the history of the world? Somebody knowing about plants being illegal. But we just don't realize the amount of history, because if we did, right, we would have been fed up a long time ago. And the sad part is it shouldn't take this much, because America fought back because they actually owed the taxes. It's not like Britain was trying to get over on them or anything. They actually owed that money. But they said, no, we ain't paying no taxes. We'll fight you to the death. And they were outnumbered. Really, at the end of the day, is a mindset. It's a mindset that we have to have, and we have to start instilling in ourselves. What's going on, Chucky? But any of y'all call in the number 804-601-4015. I'm only gonna stay on here for a few more minutes. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Forecast Radio 24. The new video is coming up. Right after this, I got a live premiere, because you know how YouTube is. They don't send notifications or any of that stuff. And that's why we have to start, building our own platforms. But the question is, why do we have that mentality where we don't want to do business with each other as much as we should? Because in reality, we do business with each other. But we don't control media. We don't control our own propaganda. And to some degree, the internet leveled the playing field to some degree. But at the end of the day, we as a collective have to learn what getting on code is. And that, even if you have to study your enemy and see how they're on code to see what it means. Right. We definitely need our own platform, because, I can't even get mad at YouTube. In a way, I see it as an honor, because, of course, your enemy is not going to let you do what you want to do. Right? That's why we have to look at all of these organizations that have supposed to have been about Black people, that have lasted for so many years. Because any group that we know was about liberation and they wasn't playing about liberation, they were labeled terrorists. They were infiltrated by the FBI. They were systematically shut down and attacked. Right, definitely. And we definitely can try Black Junction or whatever site. Right, we just have to start coming to places to agree where, okay, we're all going to go here, right, for this kind of stuff, right, and just let it build from there. Because at the end of the day, we don't have any other choice. And the younger generation, not so much, is suffering from the illusion of inclusion. And that's why they try to blame Trump on everything, right? That way they can try to say, racism was over, it was going out, but then Trump. But you can't tell me a decade, because any decade you can name for the last 600 years, I can tell you exactly what kind of game they've been playing this whole time. Because nothing is different from 1920 and 2020. They was out there rioting and doing the same thing. The only difference was it was the black community sticking together doing it. Right? And they were spending money with each other because they knew their enemy hated them so much. They didn't even want them to spend their money with them. Right? But now we go in a restaurant and somebody kicks us out for, an obviously racist reason. We get upset and mad about it. Well, I'm happy that I didn't spend my money with somebody who didn't want my money, right? Who didn't want me in their place. I'm glad you told me before I spent my money. Right. Well, the thing about, Trump is, he'll just flat out say it. And that was the same thing with George Bush. Those were probably two of the only presidents that'll just come out and say it. But we're more comfortable, apparently, with the, smiling in our face. We can take that kind of racism. That's fair. Right? I know we're not going to get justice or anything. We can wait until, 2024 and then, 2030 and then, 2050. We can wait. But, that mindset, that mentality doesn't stop now, because now we're going to see, are we still the only ones that are going to be mad now? Is everybody else going to be getting policies passed and everything else but us? But you can't really expect nothing else from your enemy. That's why you can't be mad at it, right? You have to be mad that the situation exists, right? Mad that we're still here, mad enough to do something about it. But of course, your enemy is going to do what they do. Why wouldn't they? Why would they ever give up their power? If you go to your job every day, working hard, right? Not only does, the people in the office or whoever make more money than you doing less work, the government is taking your money when we as a people shouldn't even be paying taxes in the first place, right? If we're doing taxes, it should be going within the black community, right? We're funding our own suffering, our own oppression, and we fight for that, right? We don't even care about taxation with representation anymore, because we're going to let the very people who created the system represent us. But we can do way more if we had, a little bit more faith in ourselves. And we got to ask ourselves, why have we always tried to accept it? How many treaties have to be broken? How many false promises, to the point where they say, we're not even going to make you promises, except for we may listen to you after the election. And that was after the election, and they aren't going to listen to you. Because, like good Negroes, we've done our job. But believe me, when they go on these debates and they say Americans, they ain't talking about you. That's why the black issue is a separate question in all of these debates, if you pay attention every time, right? And then they even try to mix it up with minority, because they're going to do things for the quote unquote minority, but they aren't going to do anything for you. Because if you was really an American, why would there have to be a separate question for you? Because the question America has always had was, what are we going to do with the Negroes? Right? Do we want to keep them enslaved? Do we want to let them go? But what they've done is found a way for us to willingly help them push their manifest destiny, because that's what they believe in, manifest destiny. That's why they go to any country they want and do whatever they want. And if one American dies, right, it's a tragedy, and this country, you know, did something horrible, even though, 900 of their people died during the process. Because they really believe in, manifest destiny. And they not only believe in it, they practice it. Right. Yeah, they definitely know. And we're all in this together. That's the lie that they tell their own people. Because, they always like to say black people are on the Democratic plantation when they are on the Republican plantation themselves. Right. Now, they were overseers. They had the authority over you, but they were still being used just like everybody else. But we can have our own manifest destiny instead of fighting for them, helping them create their manifest destiny. But we live in a system that has had more slave owning presidents, right, than quote unquote black presidents. Right? A country that puts, and we actually fight over their money, and they put people like Andrew Jackson on a $20 bill, and we'll rob from each other, we'll kill each other, we'll do all of these things for a piece of paper with Andrew Jackson on it, who went on a war against Negroes, because it wasn't a quote unquote Indian war, it was a Negro war. But that shows the mentality that we have. But anybody can call in. I'm about to go ahead and make sure the other video is going to be up soon. And the number is right there on the screen, 804-601-4015. Now the mentality that we have to have is, we have to do what we have to do, because I'm more afraid not to do it. Because guess what? It doesn't matter. If you don't do it, then whether you're rich, poor, whatever, you're still in their system. You're still under their laws. Somebody else controls and punishes you for not doing what they say, what they want you to do, what they tell you to do. And there's a reason why they stopped, the slave trade. It wasn't because the goodness of their hearts. It was because they realized it's easier to make a slave. It's easier to make a kid a slave than somebody who has known freedom. Because somebody who has only known slavery will just adapt, will just assimilate. But somebody who known freedom will do anything to get that freedom back. And now it's to the point where if you ask too many of us, we don't know what freedom, what liberation is, right? Until we have a nation or army defending us, then anybody can feel like they can do anything to us because there is nothing that happens to them. There is no repercussions. So why would they ever fear that? Now we had the spotlight for a minute and we wanted to share it with everybody else. And now we'll see if everybody else has our back. But we keep learning the same lessons over and over. And at some point, that's called insanity. It's time for us to learn that we can do what we have to do. And it's time for us to create our own manifest destiny because we're at a point where we can create whatever we want to create. Right. And we're worried about, a new world order. We haven't even got out the first world order yet. Right? We're still under somebody else's government. We have to get out of the situation that we have been in for 400 years because we're still losing to the old world order. But when we get that mentality of the warrior that know freedom, right? And that's being able to govern yourself, being able to get, most importantly, justice. But at the end of the day, you're always going to have to be prepared. But it shouldn't take somebody being murdered. It shouldn't take them killing a little kid. It shouldn't take them killing an old person or beating up an old person for us to be mad. We should be mad that they take our tax money to be able to do this, right? And keep us economically starved to where even the richest person has to go to one of them and assimilate or get it taken away from them. We should be mad we don't control our own food. That people who don't care enough about life to not put poison in food controls what we eat and controls what's in the stores, right? And even if you have your own garden, they pass laws about, certain regulations or whatever. They own patents on literally seeds. They sell you water, which the planet is made up of. And people joke, but it's no joke. They would try to sell you air if they could. And that may be what they're trying to do next. We should be mad we don't control our own court systems, our own grocery stores, our own schools. We should be mad. We send our kids to school to learn about Christopher Columbus discovered America, and not that he killed hundreds of thousands of people or responsible for the death of millions of people. About how he was a psychopath. About how he was a criminal that went to trial. No, we learned he discovered America. But we don't learn about Denmark Vesey. We don't learn about Madison, Washington. Right? We only get whoever they pick, right? They tell us about Martin Luther King, but they don't tell us the truth about Martin Luther King. They don't tell us how he said it was those liberals are the very people you have to look out for. They don't tell you he was saying, well, we're going to march to Washington to get our money. No, they said, oh, can we all get along? That's what they'll tell you. They'll tell you, one day I had a dream that my kids was holding hands. They don't tell you he was arrested like 30 times. They don't tell you how he said racism was as bad in the North as the South, if not worse. We got to start looking up the truth about our history, because we don't know about people like Ida B. Wells and how much of a G she was. Right before Rosa Parks, she sat right there on first class, and when they told her to move, she was like, nope, call the police, do what you got to do. And she actually won her case in 1890 something, 18 or the 1800s. Right, her friend, got caught up with a white girl, and it may have been a lie because he had a black wife, and it was probably a lie. And when she reported it and talked about the consensual sex, they attacked her, threatened to kill her, burnt her house down, burnt her printing press, all of that. She never even went back to the state, but she ain't give up. She said every black person should have a Winchester rifle in their home. They don't tell you about stuff. They just say, well, she was a feminist. Well, she stood up for black men as much as anybody in history. She's the one that taught you about the lynch law, about how white women were used, because most times they knew that that white woman was lying. It was about economically starving us, right? It was about how that nigga got a piano in his house and I don't. I'm gonna go take it. That's what it was about. And yeah, there were some consensual relationships. There was a lot of lies. But Ida B. Wells was the first person to break down the lynch law, and we all should be reading her books because that's a major part of what they still do today. Right? That's what happened to Emmett Till. And we should still be mad about that, by the way. How this woman could say she lying and nothing happens to her. But at the end of the day, until we get on that level and learn the mindset that we have to have, and then most importantly, instill it in our kids, then you know we're going to continue to be in the same situation, and the same thing is going to continue to happen. But anyway, man, I appreciate all of y'all, man. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Forecast Radio 24 The live premiere should be on in a few. It's finished uploading. As soon as it's processed, it should be up. And I gotta shout out to my sister Wanda Chavis. I don't know if the sister is listening, but she really been holding it down. And I'm not gonna lie, these videos and doing all of this research for making this book, because it's like the last like 600 years. It takes a lot of time, and of course I gotta work to make sure to take care of my family. So you know that helps a whole lot. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate the sister Wanda Chavez, man, all day, man. But it doesn't matter how long it takes. We won't stop. We are the generation that is going to destroy the system. That's what we have to remember. We're going to set our children up in a position where they can build whatever kind of dynasty they need to build, and be able to protect whatever we build, because that's been our only issue, is the protection part. But at the end of the day, we are all we got. So, I appreciate, much love, man. I appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna try to be back soon. So, um as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're gonna keep falling for anything.